Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a massive, insight-packed 13-part framework to show you exactly why operational visibility absolutely must come before any new technology investment. We're drawing all of this from an incredible series of articles by Chakra AI Solutions to really uncover the core principles of business improvement. By the time we wrap up, you're going to see exactly how to approach scaling your organization.
All right, let's just cut right to the chase and tackle an incredibly frustrating pain point. If you're running a growing business, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. You hold a big meeting, you establish a brand new process, you set the expectations, and it feels like the issue is finally resolved. But then, what happens? A few months later, that exact same problem creeps right back into the business. You feel totally trapped in this cycle of recurring bottlenecks. You fix communication, it breaks again. You buy a fancy new tool, and team adoption just drops off a cliff. So why does this happen? Well, believe it or not, it's rarely a lack of effort.
To figure out why we get stuck in this loop, we're looking at Chakra AI Solutions. They use this brilliant medical analogy for diagnosing a business that hits the nail right on the head. Think about it. In medicine, no one would accept a treatment without the doctor first understanding the actual condition, right? You definitely don't perform surgery based on a wild guess. And yet, in the business world, we do this literally all the time. We jump straight to the treatment before we've actually run the diagnostics.
Which leads us to Section 1, Symptoms versus Root Causes.
Okay, consider this classic bait and switch. A leadership team is looking at stagnant revenue, they see deals are moving super slowly, and they immediately conclude, we have a sales problem, let's buy a new CRM, let's dump money into sales training. But the actual friction is happening downstream. Existing clients are quietly leaving because the customer onboarding process is totally broken. Retention is bleeding out, and that's creating immense pressure on the sales team to constantly replace lost revenue. What looked exactly like a sales issue was actually a customer success issue. The visible problem was just downstream from the actual constraint.
And this is exactly why you can't just react to the first thing you see. To quote the framework, the visible symptom attracts attention, but symptoms rarely explain themselves. If you only treat that symptom, like buying that expensive new CRM, the root cause is still there, completely untouched. And months later, the exact same revenue problem is back, not because the software was bad, but because you aimed it at the wrong target.
Moving right along to Section 2, Anatomy of a Business.
So, to find the real constraints, we essentially need an MRI of the entire organization. The BK Map framework illustrates the 7 interconnected organs of your business: leadership, analytics, marketing, sales, customer success, operations, and technology. Now, it's absolutely crucial to remember these aren't just siloed departments, they are core capabilities. When you view them as one connected ecosystem, you start to see how a scheduling problem in operations might actually start way upstream because of a lack of strategic alignment in leadership. Mapping makes all these hidden relationships visible.
Now here's where it gets really fascinating. When you map a business, you uncover something called compensating strengths. This happens when a capability in one area becomes so incredibly effective, it completely hides a massive weakness somewhere else. For example, maybe you have a truly heroic customer service rep who is constantly putting out fires and saving the day. Well, their heroism is actually masking the fact that your core operations are totally broken. Mapping the anatomy reveals if your success is built on solid, repeatable systems, or if you're just relying on talented individuals compensating for missing structure. Because if that heroic employee quits tomorrow, your so-called strength vanishes overnight.
Let's see how this plays out in Section 3, the Universal SMB Challenge.
Picture a law firm. Now picture a lawn care company. On the outside, they share absolutely zero daily tasks. One is buried in casework and documents, the other is dispatching trucks and managing driving routes. Different terminology, different environments. Ask the founders, and they'd probably tell you their businesses have literally nothing in common.
But peel back the layers, and underneath, they share the exact same operational challenge. Complexity eventually outgrows visibility. In the early days, both of these businesses ran purely on the founder's intuition and proximity. The founder knew everything because they were doing everything. But as they grow, more employees, more clients, more moving parts, that proximity breaks down. Growth creates more complexity than any single person's memory can manage. Suddenly, both businesses hit the same wall. They need formal ways to transfer knowledge, ensure accountability, and just maintain basic visibility.
That universal truth brings us perfectly into Section 4, Why Sequence Matters Most. Knowing all this, we run into a golden rule derived straight from the source material. You cannot automate chaos. It's just impossible.
A flashy new dashboard isn't going to create operational visibility if you aren't even tracking the right metrics to begin with. An AI tool cannot magically generate organizational knowledge that doesn't already exist somewhere in your company's brains or documents. These tools are amplifiers, not creators. Try to automate a broken process, and you're just going to run a broken process at warp speed.
So, the sequence in which you improve things, it's everything. The correct order of operations goes like this. First, understand the system by mapping it out. Second, identify the actual constraint, not just a noisy symptom. Third, treat the condition with the right intervention. And fourth, transfer that capability into the organization. You have to understand the map and build readiness before applying the tool. Skipping these steps is exactly why so many wildly expensive software implementations totally fail to launch.
This right here is a massive paradigm shift. The goal of improving your business isn't to just complete a software implementation. I mean, anybody can pay to have an app installed. Real success is capability transfer. It's about building long-term operational maturity so that the new process becomes deeply embedded into the very DNA of your organization. The whole point is to have a healthier, more resilient business long after the IT project is marked complete.
Which brings us to our final core concept in Section 5, the map before the tool.
We are in the middle of a huge shift right now. Historically, you needed a Fortune 500 budget to afford these kinds of deep diagnostic systems, massive teams for process architecture and governance. But today, modern infrastructure is rapidly lowering the barrier for smaller businesses. Thanks to AI-assisted workbenches, operational intelligence platforms, and structured frameworks like this one, smaller organizations can adopt the exact same enterprise-grade disciplines without all the enterprise-scale bureaucracy. It's a real game changer.
And that brings us full circle to the ultimate takeaway of this entire explainer. The problem you think you have is rarely the problem you actually have. By mapping your business first, you get the clarity you need to separate your assumptions from actual evidence. You finally stop playing whack-a-mole with symptoms, and you start building true, lasting organizational resilience.
So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a provocative question to chew on. Before you launch that next massive initiative, before you bring in another consultant or sign a contract for yet another piece of software, pause and ask yourself, do you truly understand the hidden systems producing your outcomes? What invisible capabilities or heroic employees are quietly holding your entire business together right now?
To find out and to ensure you are actually putting the map before the tool, you've got to diagnose your business first. Drawing from this brilliant 13-part framework by Chakra AI Solutions, the next logical step is simple. Stop guessing. Take the operational clarity assessment today. Find your real constraints, build your map, and then, and only then, choose your tools. Thanks for hanging out with me on this explainer, and here's to building systems that actually scale.